Hello everyone and welcome. We are back in the Goblin Caves. We are running some Broken Barbarian, and I'm taking advantage of this video simply to talk about the lessons I've learned in the last kind of 48 hours of play. Things you should really know about Hotfix patch 19 and how it's shaken up the game. By and large, the game feels really good right now. The class balance, the buff ball nerfs, the increased loot, all of that feels, pretty strong. There's a couple unintended consequences. I'm running one of those unintended consequences right now because basically this is nigh unbeatable, particularly in a 1v1 scenario. But, as you may know, they changed a Barbarian's Blood Siphon ability, and it has an unintended synergy with Achilles Strike. So each tick of Achilles Strike counts as a blow, which means that you get 15% of your health back every time Achilles ticks for damage, which if you're fighting any mobile class is going to be quite a bit. It's basically a complete deal on the Barbarian and then some. Yeah, it's really kind of gross, but I don't want to just talk about that. I mean, clearly that interaction is not intended, and they will fix it shortly, I hope. Fingers crossed, because right now it's super strong. It's kind of ironic that they attempted to nerf Barbarian out of the catbird seat and, made him even more disgusting in the solo context. But putting that aside for a second, there was a whole bunch of class shake-up stuff. A lot of weapon rebalancing. And here's my initial reaction, after, a couple play sessions. Having played all of the classes, I think the Warlock change was probably the worst for the class. Warlock feels really bad to play now. I think they were trying to make the ungeared or early game for the Warlock better, and they've made it just much worse. You no longer really have the kind of sustain that you had in the past. It's much more difficult to attain that level of sustain. The kind of nerf to Torture Mastery is kind of disgusting, and it feels really bad. You don't have a lot of outplay on the class, and yeah, I don't know. I think they overcompensated on that one. I've played quite a bit of Ranger now and Rogue to kind of feel how they have been changed by the weapon damage increases that they did on the rarities. I'll tell you, Rogue really came out well here. I think Rogue is really strong right now. I think the weapon damage changes to swords in particular is making Rogue a danger. Again, I'm actually seeing like multi-man Rogue teams out there. I think Rogue is viable in 3-man comps now, where I don't think it really has been in the last patch. So keep your eyes peeled for those Rogues. They're going to be back out there kind of in force. Mage feels the same. I don't think the mage changes are that severe. I think it may require a little bit more skill. I don't think you can consistently outrange the rogue who's chasing you as much as you could before the changes to invisibility and haste, but it still feels okay if you're... It's really got a high skill cap, the wizard does at this point, and I think that's kind of their design intent for the class. And if you are a skilled wizard, I think you will continue to excel while, going back to Warlock for a second, I think that if there were skilled Warlocks out there, and I'm sure there are a few, the class plays nothing like it played before, and it feels considerably less fun to this Warlock amateur. But going back to Barbarian, yeah, so I think the buff ball comp has been successfully kind of paused while people explore new comps for it. Personally, I think with the changes to Warrior, the Warrior did benefit greatly from this patch. Sorry, the Fighter. I think the new meta comp is going to be Slayer, Cleric. I think that's going to be the new 3-man meta that we're going to be seeing because Fighter is in a really solid place right now. Second Wind is one of the most powerful abilities in the game for sustain. The kind of damage they're outputting with the Slayer build is extraordinarily high. So I think we're going to see, double Fighter Cleric as being, the new meta. That's just me. That's just my hot take after 48 hours since the patch. Cleric feels okay, honestly. The worst part about the change is the 2.5 second cast. on the big heal, and its impact in kind of group fights, you know, it really can't be overstated how much that changes the dynamic of cleric in team fights. I got a bunch of seat time on it now. I'll tell you, the solo cleric feels relatively unchanged. The faster spell regen actually helps you get the spells back used the most, which is your small heals and your self buffs. That's actually kind of a buff, frankly. You're going to use less fires as a solo cleric now to get spells back. The team play, though, like, I don't want to say that the big heal is going to be completely unusable, but boy howdy is it a lot harder. That half second is a giant deal for cleric, and I think we're going to see them leaning more on protection and the little heal as kind of their go-to for in-combat top-offs. I don't know if it's just my muscle memory for the 2-second cast, but I found myself flubbing a lot of big heals in critical fights and at critical times, and I just can't get the new timing down correctly. Add to the fact that, you know, you miss spells occasionally, and missing a big heal after investing 2.5 seconds in the channel, oof, it's rough. It's really rough. But otherwise, I mean, the offensive powers of the cleric, those changes really didn't impact them much at all. It's super hard to dodge a lightning strike. It's super hard to dodge a divine strike now. So, yeah, I don't really see those as being meaningful. I mean, Earthquake was kind of on the way out, I think, as part of the meta, and it may come back in. But without Ranger taking a top spot anymore in kind of the DPS stack rank, I don't really see Earthquake as being that useful. Maybe it helps your Wizard land some Ice Bolt headshots. I think Ranger still feels pretty weak, frankly, having played it a little bit. It's never been my favorite class to solo with. One, it's expensive to run, and then two, it's just every fight is close on the Ranger. And I don't really feel like that's changed. In a 3-man dynamic, you can definitely make it work, but I question about whether or not that spot is better served by bringing another fighter or even a rogue DPS. May be considerably more solid right now, just because the burst potential, right? And, you know, with a lot of the experimentation we've seen in the last 48 hours, there's a lot of 3-man DPS comps running around, and it's really hard right now to sustain through that burst. So I'm not really sure that we're not going to see the kind of prevalence of an offensive cleric, 2 offensive warriors. The cleric's not there to do any healing during the fight. Instead, the warriors are going to lean on their second wins for sustain in the fight and just out DPS targets down. And I think right now, like, Warrior's going to take that top spot. Now, you know, once per raid, without a fire, I assume, the Barbarian can do just like the highest sustain in the game with this glitch right now between the interactions of Ham's Achilles Strike and Blood Siphon. I mean, it's just kind of ridiculously broken. As a matter of fact, like yesterday at some point, there were like a lot of solo rogues running around in the Goblin Caves, and those have once again now been replaced with kind of Barbarians as the only people really having any success here, because they are running this glitch, I'm going to call it, because I can't believe that this is an intended consequence. Just circling back around to loot real quick, the loot changes feel really good for normals. They've always been good on High Roller. I will tell you that, you know, we ran for multiple hours last night, 3-man compositions. You know, I think without a doubt you should be in High Roller, like hands down. You will encounter less people, you will encounter less gear challenge playing in High Roller right now than you will in normals. I don't know what's driving the the increased flood of now people, you know, taking their super well geared teams down into normals to clear lobbies, but I mean, it's still going on. It's still probably the most popular way to play the game. I don't understand why that is. The whole mentality is very confusing to me. But if you were tired of getting ganked by super well geared people, and you accept the fact that that is kind of the normal for going into a normal lobby, then just go into high roller. Like, save up the money, go into high roller. Yes, your chances of being rolled by an uber-kitted team are still non-zero, but they're actually much lower than if you go into normals. Add to that, the rewards for going into high roller are going to just be so much better than regulars. That, on the balance, you will do better having run high rollers over 5 or 6 runs as compared to normals. Even with the cost of admission, the gear that you get out of there is just so much more valuable. The last thing to talk about really are the portal changes. There were a significant number of portal changes. The addition of the static portals, great change. The reduction in Goblin Caves, I don't really know because I haven't been playing that much Goblin Caves, but it feels a little light to me. I think maybe 5-1 is better, a better feel for the Goblin Caves, I guess, but anything to reduce teaming in the short term is a good call. The changes to crypts, though, feel bad. And I say that by raising the population to 18 in crypts. Essentially, the opening gambit for any team is to rush the other closest spawn, and the chances of there being another team there is very high, or a solo player, or a duo, or whatever. Like, that is happening every game, almost without fail. If a experienced team spawns in near you, they're going to rush the spawn you spawned at, and run you down and kill you, or at least take that fight. And that happened to me in almost every game we played in Crypts last night. And I think that's kind of the new normal. Like, the map is too small, the spawn locations are too well known for the 18-player cap. Inferno feels fine, frankly. The population that's going down there is still diminished as compared to those folks queuing up for Crypts, but I think 18 may be the wrong number. I think 15 felt better. Runes always had 16, and it always felt like it was a more intense PvP experience, and you certainly get that in the first opening salvo of Crypts now. You get rushed, you run into another team early, almost every game. And I don't know. I think right now, my initial reaction is roll it back to 15. But regardless, I hope you enjoyed this. If you did, please like and subscribe. It helps me a ton, and good luck to you in your raids to come.